Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Sebastian Lim from SEP Academy, and we are very honored to have with us Ming Liang today, who is an established math tutor teaching H2 math. So Ming Liang, tell a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. So actually for me, right, I've been teaching math, or actually math in general, right, secondary and JC, right, H1, H2, actually since after I graduated from army, ORD from army. So it's been a good almost 6 years already from there. Yeah, so actually for me, I feel that math, I enjoy teaching math because everything is quite clear cut. You have a very systematic way of tackling questions, okay? And then from there, right, it's a subject where your hard work really shows, okay? If you really put in the hours, okay, you will get the results. It's not like subjects like paper, general paper like that, where sometimes things are a bit subjective, okay? Sometimes even though you know you read out different things, because of the way they phrase the question, the way you give the answer, then depending on how the markers interpret it, there might be some discrepancy in what you expect.
Seems like we can map out a way where we can actually score and excel in mathematics. Very much similar to our Set 3, Set 4, EMath, AMath. Would you agree this is pretty similar?
Okay, I would say that yes, in terms of procedure, okay, and in terms of how you actually study for math, it's still quite similar. Mainly it's just boils down to practice lah. But we do need to think of that for JC, right, H1 and H2 math, okay, definitely there will be a big significant jump lah in terms of difficulty level and the content scope also as well. So that thing we must think of.
Okay, maybe since it's vastly different, can you tell us probably a percentage so our viewers can understand how different is the content?
Okay, so for this one here, okay, it's quite a big question, so I'll just break it down into a few things first. Firstly, we need to understand that for H1, H2 math, right, there's two different teams involved here. So for both of them, there is pure math, okay, pure math topics, and after that is statistics. So statistics will be anything that's related to data analysis. Okay, for pure math, right, okay, I'll start with H1 first. H1 pure math topics, generally, they are almost the same difficulty level as your AMath, okay? But in terms of scope, right, it's actually lesser because it's only around 5 chapters worth. It's only 5 chapters worth for H1 math.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing to think of. So if you happen to take AMath, you do well in it, then definitely you can score for H1 pure math, I would say.
Can I just interject at this moment because some of our viewers, they have a question between taking AMath and H1 math, what's the difference between AMath and H1 math?
Okay, so actually that will link to the second part, which is the statistics portion. Okay, so for AMath, right, actually they go a lot on focus in pure math chapters. Okay, not so much in statistics, maybe your probability, that's set notation, that's more of the statistic chapter already. Okay, but for H1 math, they will go into more chapters. So you have things like linear regression, hypothesis testing, permutations, combinations, and data distributions. Okay, so these are the stuff that's actually more new and unique compared to the AMath syllabus. And these are also the topics that happen to overlap with your H2 math syllabus as well. Yeah, so maybe I'll go on to a bit about H2 math syllabus then. So for H2, right, for the pure math topics, okay, you have double the scope for pure math topics. Okay, just take note of that. And the depth also is bigger, much bigger. Okay, so just think of that then. Generally, I would say that if you have AMath background, you'll still need to put in some effort, okay, to really master all the topics itself. But even though the jump is significant, okay, you will just take note that with hard work, you will still be able to get your A. Okay. On that second part then, obviously the statistics topics for H2 math. Okay, so for H2 statistics topics, they overlap significantly with the H1. Okay, but do take note that for subjects such as permutation and combination, as well as linear regression and correlation, okay, the H2 actually cover is more in depth. Okay, so that's something to take note of.
Okay, so that means that is one thing that's different from H1 math. So, okay, so now, is there any prerequisite for taking H2 math?
Okay, so actually, I would recommend that if you have a good AMath background, you should consider H2 math. Okay, but here personally I don't like to impose limiting beliefs on students. So let's say if you are aspiring H2 math student and you only took EMath, I would say if you have a real interest for math and you're willing to commit the long hours for it, then just go for H2 math. It could be reasons because other than interest, maybe you want to go to certain courses like science related or econs, okay, that requires you to have H2 math in your A-level cert. Okay, in that case, if you were to choose such a course, right, that requires you to take a H2 math subject, even though you don't have AMath background, you must be prepared to put in much longer hours compared to your peers. Okay, because most of them will have AMath background.
Okay, actually, at this point, I have 2 questions for you, but probably one is, okay, let's say if I'm a very concerned student, I struggle a little bit with AMath in the O-level, so my result, I got a B3.
Ooh.
So, do you think that I should take H1 or H2 math?
Okay, this question. Okay, at this point, I will actually ask the student then, how hard are you willing to work for the math? Okay, so actually for B3, right, for AMath, I would say you're probably in the grey zone now. I wouldn't say you're very strong. Okay, I won't say you are that bad either lah. It's just that when you progress on to H2 Math, right? Because most of them after they finish their O levels, most of them don't really go back and revise and stuff. So after that 3 months break, you sort of like forget quite a significant number of the stuff that you actually learned before already.
I guess
so. When they kickstart into like the H2 Math, right? Sometimes because it's gonna be a jump in difficulty level, then they are not adjusted to it yet. Yeah, especially if you only have B3 in your background. So yeah, then you start to feel that at the start there's pretty steep learning curve, so you must think about that.
I guess that is one very interesting point. So there is some hesitation. There's less of a pull factor to take H2 Math. That's a very interesting insight. So it's not about what we start, but actually the question that begs us to answer is how do we end? So taking H2 Math, which university courses require H2 Math as a prerequisite?
Okay, so for H2 Math, right, okay, if you are considering to take engineering courses, okay, or any math related courses or any other thing that involves data analysis, okay, all this will actually require you to have H2 Math background. Okay, however, although for other subjects such as your econs, okay, even though they don't require you to have H2 Math as a prerequisite, H2 Math topics, right, will still form a core foundation for these modules itself. Okay, so it's important that if you are considering to go for this courses, okay, so in general anything close to science related or econs, okay, you should consider taking H2 Math.
I see. So I guess this is also one of the most popular courses for both the arts and science streams as well. So like a lot of students, they will take like PCME, Physics, Chem, Math and Econs, or BCME, Bio, Math, Chem, Econs, as well as some of the art streams as well. So it's really popular. So share with us some tips. How do you excel, like for example in H2 Math?
Okay, so actually for H2 Math, right, the most important thing you all must think of is that don't let your work snowball or build up, okay? Because most importantly, what I realized is that for a person who actually has a lot of work that is lagging behind, right, if you want to do a catch up, right, it's actually pretty hard. A lot of people actually underestimate how much effort you need to put into actually catch up. Because if you just think about it on your daily schedule, right, you're not doing enough to keep up with the pace. And now you have to double up on that to do even more to actually go at a faster pace. So for me, I believe that at the start, right, your first focus is actually to get a routine down. Okay, it's important that you actually practice your math regularly, okay? Because most people, what they experience was that maybe the first couple of months when they go for the lectures and stuff, maybe they are still new to lecture. If you imagine you are going to a lecture hall and then there's quite limited engagement with the lecturer, and you're looking at the slides, right, where it's like you're looking at formulas, notations and stuff. It might not make sense to you, and then icon is very nice and you start dozing off. So a lot of people actually, things start to accumulate. So after every lecture, you should need to make sure that you are up to pace with what they covered. Because if not, you will gradually start to lag behind, and this, before you know, you actually accumulate to a large amount.
So it's like the review as well as practice to understand the concept is very important. So actually it brings forth another question that I have. So is it something like A Math, where we understand that, you have to do algebra, linear algebra, you understand about quadratics first before we progress into further math, like for example a little bit more complex, for example like binomial. And we upgrade to factor theorem and remainder theorem. So is there such a progression in H2 Math you see?
Okay, so for H2 Math, right, generally for pure math, yes, there is this progression also as well. For statistics also they do have, it's just that these two teams of math actually they don't coincide with each other. Okay, so for the pure math, right, generally the first few topics will always be your most important now, because after that, whatever that they do will be built on your understanding of graphs and functions. Okay, so these are quite the few core topics to take note of. Okay, for statistics wise, right, okay, what you need to be, the most important thing you need to take note of is the distributions first. So for your binomial and normal distributions, right, okay, you all might not be familiar with it now, but when you learn about it, please take a special note of it, because the subsequent topics, right, which is your hypothesis testing, will be linked to these distributions itself.
I see. And something that just was on the back of my mind is for our Set 3s and Set 4s taking H2 Math is, you have to buy a new graphic calculator. So is it really very complicated? Is it very tough to learn how to manipulate some of the functions, because it looks really tough for those who do not know how to operate it? So
okay, to be honest, for a first time user, I remember the first time I got the calculator. Okay, I felt it was a hassle because compared to a scientific calculator, there's more buttons, there's more functions. Okay, so for certain things you might realize that I need to do a lot more steps to actually get some computations done. But in the long run, right, you realize that because of the myriad of functions that it has, it will be very, very important for you to actually know how to use your graphic calculator efficiently. Okay, because a lot of the questions involved in H2 Math, right, require the use of graphic calculator. Okay, and that will really save you a lot of time and hassle down the long run.
Is there any hacks in the calculator, like are we able to like store equations where we can recall it?
Oh, okay, actually, yes, there is such a function, okay? Although, typically we don't have to use that most of the time. I would say that for graphic calculator, you all don't have to worry too much about it because the schools will actually go through detail how to use the calculator. But let's say today, if you really encounter any problems, right, you could easily just search it out on YouTube. Like, if you want to do a certain function and you don't know what the buttons to press. Okay, because YouTube actually has, like, for the calculator different models, right, they actually has detailed tutorials on how to use them.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting, and so I guess this applies for statistics as well, so it makes everything easier. Now, we understand, let's say for chemistry, we have that periodic table, and for H2 math, there's also there's so many different topics now brought into play as well as for statistics, so you need to refer to many different types of equations. So is there any reference material that's provided to students which they can bring to the exam hall, something like a periodic table to help them?
Okay, I would say that unfortunately there's nothing you can prepare on your end. But what they will do is they'll give you the MF26 formula sheet. Okay, and that pretty much should solve most of your problems already, to be honest, provided you have practiced enough to know how to apply them. Yeah.
So similar to the periodic table for chemistry, we have this sheet as well to help students to understand and apply the concepts much better. Okay, so now let's turn to our audience who have some questions submitted in. So let's see this. So now, one student asks, if I do not take A math in secondary school, is it still advisable to try H2 math with or without bridging classes?
Okay, I would say go for it if you really have the interest for it. But however, I do highly recommend bridging classes, okay? Because even though you might have the interest in math, it's important for you to know exactly how much more difficult it's gonna be, okay? So attending these classes, right, actually will give you a head start, okay? It will help you to actually plug in some gaps in your understanding also, in your knowledge, before you actually transit over to the official classes for H2 math when the school starts, okay? Because depending on schools, right, some of them may not actually devote a lot of time to actually doing recaps and all. They might just dive straight into the new topics and concepts, okay, which you might not be ready to grasp yet, okay?
I see. So it seems like there's a steeper learning curve.
Yes.
So I guess a bridging module would help very well for the student who has not taken A math before. So I guess that was a very interesting insights about H1 and H2 math. So, but looking at the academical level, so I wanted to ask, what are the differences in the papers? So for example, paper 1, paper 2, etc. Probably you can tell our viewers what are the differences between H1 and H2 math.
Okay, so for H1 math, right, okay, you have a 3-hour paper to be completed in one sitting. Okay, so the paper is worth 100 marks, 60% will be under statistics and 40% will be for the pure math. Okay, that's for H1. For H2, you have double the workload. Okay, so it'll be 2 3-hour papers. Okay, but obviously it's not all at one shot, it's 2 separate sittings. Okay, the first paper, right, will be purely all on pure math. Okay, 100% on pure math. Then the second paper, 40% will be on pure math, and the last 60% is on statistics. Okay, so one thing to take note of is that generally, for most of my students, right, I realize that they find statistics easier and the pure math to be slightly harder. Okay, so I would say that for H1 math, statistics forms a much larger portion, okay, of the whole paper. Whereas for the H2 math, your pure math topics form a much greater portion of your entire paper. Yeah, so something to take note of.
Okay, and probably one question for our viewers is, which do you think is the topic that they should watch out for H2 math to score their A?
Oh, okay.
So probably is it because I heard of some students they were saying that some of the vectors was pretty difficult, but they were very thankful that a portion of it was taken up from the 2020 A-level syllabus.
Okay, I would say that vectors is one of those topics which, because it's very large, okay, and very the scope is very large and then it goes very in depth. Okay, that's why they will actually test quite a significant amount of the questions, right, on vectors itself. Okay, another one to take note of is probably your calculus, okay, differential equations. Okay, those that involve your differentiation and integration all lumped together. So those kind of questions will also be quite significant because of the breadth of the topics itself, which spans across the entire calculus.
Seems like it is actually a good decision for those who did not throw away your A math notes from your O-level. But if you have done such a thing, but don't worry, because we have excellent math tutors around who are here with a lot of passion, knowledge and drive to help you to succeed. So thank you so much, Ming Liang, for your time with us.
Sure, no problem.
And we look forward to a second session if we have to answer some of the questions from students and parents about how to help your child choose subject combi. Thank you.